would you recommend?
Aoife Lee. She's an executive coach, works with a lot of leadership teams around emotional intelligence.
Challenge accepted.
Leaders hold so much power in their position. I helped leaders to become aware of their impact, the shadow that they cast through negative behavior or positive behavior.
What qualities do you see separating great leaders from just the average ones?
They know their why. Best leaders are the ones who will lift you up so high that you may even overtake them. They feel safe to bring their whole self to work.
If you had to somehow summarize what's the most common leadership challenge you see among executives today?
The onslaught of AI and technological advancements, getting ahead of it, and some feel ill-prepared. They need to look at their ways of communicating, in most cases more often than fully on-site working world that we used to be in.
Over-communicating.
Over-communicating.
Which adaptations are necessary when the coaching process needs to happen remotely?
Really try to pick up on things that I'm seeing on screen. And even though I don't have full body language, I can still pick up on micro-expressions, tones.
I'm worried now about my micro-expressions. How really are you able to measure the return of an investment?
It's a great question, and I find people can come into coaching with a bit of skepticism about, how are you really going to be able to prove that this stuff works?
So how do you build an internal coaching process program that doesn't put people on the spot looking like they need to improve?
We're setting up this coaching function, but it does not mean that just because you're performing poorly, you've got a coach. Everybody gets coached. So that was the message from the start.
Hello, Aoife. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. How are you?
Welcome to the show. How are you feeling today?
Very good. It's sunny for once where I am. I'm based in Dublin, and so a bit of September sun is always welcome.
Before we start into the hot topics today, there's something here with your name that I would like to clarify. So the way I read the name is something like Aoife, but then I know that your name reads something like Eve.
Don't worry.
What's happening here?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Okay.
So it's Irish. So in 𝘬𝘩𝘢, which is our language in Ireland, it's our native language. The letters A, O, I together are pronounced E, so it's Aoife. So I've had to battle with this every time I stepped outside of Ireland my whole life. I spent a year working in Toronto, so this was common conversation topic. So I usually say to people, just think of FIFA, Football Association, and take the F off the front, and then it just clicks.
Okay. Yeah, so Aoife, that's it.
Yeah, easy.
I feel like you have that explanation already rehearsed, like
I have
thousands
that
of
down
times.
pass.
Yeah, it's like my name. You know my name? My name is a very typical Portuguese name, my first Portuguese name. And it has a sound like João, the own sound, that no one outside Portugal can make that sound. So it's always the same conversation. I always need to, every time I meet someone new, especially from US, English language, etc.,
Really?
it's always like 10 minutes trying. I've heard like tons of variations of my name. It's João, Ao, Yao, yeah. So
yeah, I thought Yao when I first saw it.
You also felt it.
Yeah, yeah.
How to pronounce his name? Well, names.
I'd say you're everything.
Okay, good that we've covered the name issue part from both sides. Then when it comes to your profile and the interesting topics that I would like to explore today. So you present yourself as a leadership, learning and development specialist with expertise in the areas of high performance leadership and building emotional intelligence.
It's nice and wordy title. I think I'm thinking of shortening it just to leadership developer. I don't know. But yeah, what does it mean? It means I go and I speak to leaders and organizations who are having a variety of different challenges, the wide range of things that they might be challenged with. They ask me to come in to speak to everyone, usually at C-suite level, to understand what are the issues, what are the real issues. And I might do that through one-to-one, through focus group as well, to re-identify what the needs are. So is it a training need? Is it something else? So then I'll go and design, based on what I've heard, I'll design a learning intervention or a team coaching session, or it could be individual coaching. sessions that are required. So I'm a trained executive coach as well.
What drew you to leadership development in the first place?
From as long as I can remember, I wanted to be that person at the top of a room imparting knowledge. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to line up my teddies and my dolls in front of my wardrobe, and I'd open up the wardrobe doors, the white ones, much to my mother's horror. And I would take whiteboard markers, and I wouldn't even know what I was writing because I didn't know how to write. This was when I was really small. I'd write stuff up on the boards as if I was teaching my stuffed teddies and dolls. So I have that memory of always wanting to impart knowledge and always being so happy in the position of being the expert or having information from people and seeing for people and seeing that light bulb go off for them that, oh, that's interesting. That's changed something. So when I went to school and went to college, it wasn't being a teacher that I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a lecturer. But when I started in my first role, entry-level position in the corporate world, which was in Vodafone, and I saw the trainer in the room, and I thought, oh, that job is interesting. Just the variety of different ways that he got us curious about learning and taught us some of the most mundane software and systems, that he made it interesting through his way of imparting knowledge and through his way of allowing us to practice. And that really got me interested in development, so training and development. Then my another reason was when I was in my 20s, I had the experience of being under a really bad manager. That was quite a significant, impactful experience on my life. And having gone through it, I made a pact with myself that I would never let anybody feel like that again, and the way that person made me feel. And then when I saw the impact that had on everything around me, I thought, leaders hold so much power in their position. I wanted to make sure that whatever I did in my life, I wanted to make sure that I helped leaders to become aware of their impact, the shadow that they cast. It's vast, whether that's negative behavior, through negative behavior or positive behavior.
Both.
And so that was what was a real turning point for me, that I'd been in training and development for a while at that point, and I had that experience, and I said, no, this is definitely where I need to make my mark on the world.
Like your mission, your purpose.
Yeah, and to help leaders to see that impact, and to realize the weight of it, and to help them to be better and be the better leader that they ever thought they could be, and to be able to lead the teams that they always wished they could lead.
After all these years doing what you do in this area, what qualities do you see separating great leaders from just the average ones?
I'm a huge fan and an advocate of transformational leadership. So broadly, there are 4 different areas to that. And the most successful leaders that I see in business, the ones who are separated from average ones, are the ones who focus on these 4 different areas. So first of all, they know their why. Leaders who can speak about their purpose. Why am I doing this? Why am I in this position? But why am I doing this for this company? And they're able to create that compelling vision that others can follow, others can easily follow. They have a passion, an interest, a genuine curiosity in developing others and an individual's development. So they encourage others to
follow the same purpose.
Yeah. They want to see them do well. They know the benefits of people investing in their development and in people striving for high performance, but they have a genuine interest in individuals in their organization as well. And they will the good of the other.
They are not afraid of those people taking their place in the company.
Best leaders are the ones who will lift you up so high that you may even overtake them, but that's okay. Ego is out the window. They want to see you shine. They create a psychologically safe environment. So to coin Amy Edmondson's term, psychological safe environments are those in which people feel safe to speak up. They feel safe without fear of being ridiculed or judged. They feel safe to challenge others, challenge the boss. They feel safe to make mistakes. They feel safe to bring their whole self to work. leaders who create that environment where people can share ideas, they can feel okay to challenge the status quo, and they can be innovative. So leaders who understand that that's what's required to get us to the next level, a positive role model as well. So behaving in the way that they would expect others to behave. So as a leader, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I won't expect of myself. So that's a really positive aspect of transformational leadership. There's an element in there as well of servant leadership. Servant leadership is a separate thought in itself or approach in itself. But there is an element of servant leadership in transformational leadership theory as well. And that in that, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I won't do myself. You know, I'm not at the top of the triangle above everyone. Actually, it's inversed. I'm at the bottom and I'm trying to make sure that the path is clear for everybody to be their best and do their jobs in the most effective way. So that's it. Yeah.
I guess after hearing your points here, everyone is doing their own self-assessment to see if they fit all the 4 boxes or not. But curious enough, you didn't mention how important is emotional intelligence in leadership and how can leaders cultivate it?
Yeah, and you know what, emotional intelligence is laced through that theory. If you look at some of if you look at each of those different 4 facets of transformational leadership, an emotional intelligence in itself is a beast. So if we were to break it down, there are lots of different emotional intelligence psychometrics out there where a leader can take the test and see where they've rated themselves against a number of different competencies. The one that I use is the Roush-Martin ECR. So that's the Emotional Capital Report. And the Roush-Martin research tells us that there are 10 competencies for successful leaders. So 10 different competencies that fall under the emotional intelligence umbrella that are critical for leadership success. So they are things like self-knowing. So having that awareness of how your emotions and your opinions impact on others and decisions. It's that self-confidence. So knowing your value, liking yourself, and being able to communicate that value to others and standing over it. It's about adaptability. So that ability to quickly change your thoughts and your actions, your behaviors, to suit the changing circumstances. It's about optimism. So how optimism plays in leadership is that really a leader who has a highly developed level of optimism is able to see possibilities in the challenges. So they see the possibilities through the obstacles. They're resilient. They're able to dust themselves off and bounce forward after or during a setback. They are self-actualized. So a leader who is highly self-actualized, they get great energy from setting and achieving goals. They're not just about getting to the outcome. They enjoy the process of learning along the way, and they encourage others to do the same. They have good relationship skills. So they place great emphasis on getting to know people around them. They understand the need to adapt their style depending on who they're talking to, whether it's an internal or external stakeholder, one of their direct reports, a peer, upper level management. They put time into that, into growing, nurturing new and existing relationships. The big one that everybody relates emotional intelligence to is empathy. But you can see that there are so many other parts to emotional intelligence based on the research. Empathy, the cliche term, it's having that ability to walk in someone else's shoes, to understand the feeling in the room, to be able to read the room, to be able to acknowledge and understand someone's position, their thoughts, their feelings about something, and being able to articulate that clearly to them. It's about straightforwardness as well. How clear are you as a leader in delivering your messages? Not being blunt, being tailoring your message to your audience, but being clear in your message. So having care about how you're delivering your message, but not sugarcoating things. So maintaining the relationship through even though you're having to deliver difficult messages. Self-reliance is your ability to work independently. It's your ability to take decisions, take action with the little information that you have at times, not having to always look for reassurance and taking decisions, taking action.
If you have to somehow summarize what's the most common leadership challenge you see among executives today, what would it be?
How are we developing, building strategy, protecting our organization in the face of technological advancements? So AI is coming. How are we preparing ourselves? What are we doing to embrace AI? What are we doing to future-proof our organization, to make sure that we've got the skills to utilize this technology, and not just the skills, but also the people? Have we got the right people in place for our future? The onslaught of AI and technological advancements, getting ahead of it, and some feel ill-prepared. So I'm hearing that, and the lack of preparedness can come from a lot of different reasons. Also seeing a lack of communication between teams at C-suite level, a clash of personality. I see that a lot, and it does come to the fore when I start to get working with the C-suite team, that a lot of the challenges can be interpersonal, and can come down to the soft skills that are required to build and maintain a high-performing exec level team.
You mentioned technology. So technology also now creates new work dynamics, which includes remote work, hybrid work. How does that impact our leaders? What do they need to change the way they show up?
Leaders need to be more aware of what's required of bringing remote workers in, whether they're hybrid or full-time remote, that they need to look at their ways of communicating. Transparent communication, in most cases, more often than in a fully on-site working world that we used to be in.
Over communicating, and
looking for ways to allow people to share when they are struggling. So really having more of a focus on well-being and empathy for those who may be feeling isolated. Even if they are hybrid, they may only be on site 1 to 2 days a week. There could be a long chunk of time there where they're not able to, or they don't feel like they can communicate as freely with colleagues, or if there's a problem weighing on their mind, what's the avenue for them to share that? So leaders really have to look at what are our channels for communicating? How are we making sure that people are feeling connected and not feeling isolated or left out? That we're also, when we're onboarding, how do we bring the understanding of our culture and how we do things around here to people who are working remotely? You hear so often now of people being onboarded remotely. They have a chunk of time at home remotely, working, and then they're coming into the office and they still feel quite isolated, and they're still trying to figure it all out. So it'll be unique to each business. What can be useful is having a strong, robust onboarding process, and thinking remote first as well. So when we think remote first, we're looking at ideas as to how we can include the remote workers, including hybrid when people are at home. How are we making sure that we're catching all if we're running with something new or we're communicating a message? Those kinds of things, just that hyper awareness of how people may be feeling and how we can mitigate the risk of people being isolated or feeling like they're not being communicated with.
Do you also work with leaders remotely?
A lot of my work one-to-one is remote. We tend to meet every third session or something like that. We'll meet in person unless we're in different countries. Okay. Other than that, usually with team work, I find personally it's been best done in person. So I can get in and get face-to-face time with the team and get to know them, and then I get a better understanding when I'm in human contact with them, and I can see maybe some of the small micro expressions, tones, things that might not be picked up on camera or virtually.
Right.
I can pick up on a lot when I'm in the room. Certainly then what I've found is, say if I am working with a team over a long period of time, we can go remote for certain sessions, like if it's just a pick up kind of a learning set call where we'll just pick back up together a month after a learning session and get on a call for 90 minutes and just pull apart what's working, what's not working. That can work well, but the rapport has been built and the trust has been built, and that's when that remote kind of a learning session can work. But for the most part, it would be in person, in group, and online for one-to-one.
But thinking on those one-on-one conversations with leaders, which adaptations are necessary when the coaching process needs to happen remotely?
Not really. I have learned to adapt, I suppose. So there's nothing really that is glaringly obvious to me that would say I do this very differently. I do really try to pick up on things that I'm seeing on screen. And even though I don't have full body language, I can still pick up on micro expressions, tones.
I'm worried now about my micro expressions. I thought that was a whole adaptation that needs to happen like in other areas where everything had to be adapted to remote. But it seems like coaching is something that could transpose very easily to...
It transfers quite easily, yeah.
I think this is the ideal moment also to remind everyone that if you're interested in reaching out to Aoife, right, I've left all the necessary contacts in the video description, so feel free to reach out and let's see from where the conversation takes us. Have that, was it called the chemistry session with Aoife, right?
The chemistry session.
Where you understand better if this is the right coach for you, and the coach understands better if it's the right coachee, right? Chemistry, like in dating chemistry. Similar.
I know, it's such an odd name, isn't it? It is a little bit off-putting.
I think it's a good name, Aoife. It really tells what it is, right? Is that chemistry or not? If not, both parts their ways, and that's it. There's no coaching.
So a chemistry session, it's come from coaching. So if you are a leader and you decide either through your organization or on your own that you want to work with a coach, if you contact the coach directly, they'll usually say, hey, let's set up a chemistry session. It's a 30-minute call whereby you as the coachee can come with some of the challenges that you're facing, share some of those, share a bit of your background, who you are, what kind of style you appreciate in terms of being communicated with. And then you get to know your coach. Your coach then can share with you how they'll be able to help you through their program of coaching to solve some of those challenges that you're talking about. You're going to meet with a couple of us because the coachee usually has the option to pick a couple of coaches. They might go and research and find them themselves. Or if it's through their organization, the organization is usually working with a consultancy, a coaching consultancy, and they'll be able to select a couple of profiles, people they want to potentially work with. They've got a couple of chemistry calls and they decide, then the coachee decides who they want to work with. I always say to people, look, it comes down to, do you think that you will work well with me? Do you like me? Do you think that we could work well together over the course of the coaching sessions? Do you think that I'm someone who'll hold you accountable and challenge you? And is that what you want? So every coach has just a different style. So that's really then up to the coachee in that chemistry call to make their decision.
But then after the chemistry is matched or set up, I'm not sure exactly which verb we use here, someone needs to talk about the objectives of the coaching, right? What we are trying to achieve, the goals, and more than that, there's going to be a cost of this and there's an expected return on investment. Yeah. This has always been a topic for me very interesting, which is you can promise worlds and funds, etc., but how really are you able to measure the return of an investment in a coaching, or a coach?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that I find people can come into coaching with a bit of skepticism about. How are you really going to be able to prove that this stuff works? Mm-hmm. And often the skeptics are the ones who've been put on a coaching program or sent to me through their organization. We're working with the C-suite. Yeah. We're working with the C-suite and everybody's getting coached and you need to set up a call with Aoife. So often I find that leaders can be, unless they've experienced coaching in the past and they've seen the benefits of it, they can be a little bit skeptical. So there are a number of different ways you can measure the return on investment. It is tricky, and you do have to do a little bit of work as the coach to evaluate. There's a couple of good source that I would use is if I were going to start again and do it, I would go to Coaching for Performance, Sir John Whitmore. There's a good formula in there. But you can evaluate skills, you could evaluate behavioral change, and you could do a financial ROI. But again, it comes down to asking the right questions at the start, doing a kind of an assessment at the start based on what you want to evaluate, a midpoint and an end of program. So say at the start of the program, I'm going to want to measure behavioral change. So I identify with the coachee what are the areas that you want to focus on, and what do you want that to look like in 6 months' time? What's the behavioral change that we should expect to see? And you can benchmark that, like you can do it on a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And then we evaluate at key milestone points. Also, what can be useful is to bring in the manager of this person. And so the manager at the start forms a kind of a triad with me, the coachee, and them, where we discuss those measures of success. Are they realistic? How are we going to kill off other variable factors that might be helping this person to improve behavior in certain areas? How are we making sure that the coaching is the thing? It's what's creating the change. So we talk a bit about that. This is also a good tool to use, is having the manager involved early on, because they are a good sponsor then of the program. Then for every coaching session, after that, we're measuring the progress, recording any information, any data, anything that could have, any progress that's been made that could have been because of the work that the person did through coaching to change the behavior. So you're recording, and then at the end, we do a midpoint with the manager and an end of program with the manager. And we then talk about what can we stand over has been a measurable impact of the coaching. There's a financial formula as well, which I haven't done. I've done it with training, but I haven't done a financial measure or return on investment evaluation. So that, again, that's in that book. Also, the International Coaching Federation is a good place to go as a resource if people want to take a look into that. How can I measure the financial return on investment? I think it would be financial impact. So what are we saying was an impact in monetary terms, multiplied by the confidence. So we'll say it's a behavioral change of improved confidence. From where you started to where you are now, what's the percentage increase in confidence? Mm-hmm. So multiply that by that, divided by the cost of the coaching.
I've noticed on your profile that you've worked for 7 years at eBay, right? Big name.
Yeah.
And you had the chance to work in a team that was responsible for coaching internal team members. I've never seen anything like this, at least framed in this way. But to be honest, when I think about internal coaching, I would have like an initial reaction that could be negative. So if I'm put on an internal coaching program, wouldn't that immediately tell me that probably my performance needs to improve? So how do you build an internal coaching process program that doesn't put people on the spot looking like they need to improve?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that was our hill to climb amongst many others when the coaching function was first set up at eBay. So I was working there when it was initially set up, and it was just before I joined the team. So it was set up in 2012. One of the main sponsors, the sponsor of the program, was our senior vice president at the time. And so he was really driving that message really clearly throughout the organization that everybody's getting a coach. So we're setting up this coaching function, but it does not mean that just because you're performing poorly, you've got a coach. Everybody gets coached. So that was the message from the start. So when I joined the team in 2013, this was already a pretty well-established idea, and everybody was really getting used to coaching. Another factor in helping that change that mindset is that the coach works alongside the team leaders of the teams at eBay. So that was another factor that helped with that mindset. So they weren't ultimately responsible for performance the way the team leader was. They were the motivator, helping the individuals on the team to see where their challenges were, where their opportunities were, where their strengths were, and helping them to come up with their own creative ways to develop the opportunities and to build on their strengths. So that kind of a model worked really well at the time for mitigating that risk of people feeling like, why am I getting coached?
Everybody's
getting coached.
So it's not targeting you specifically.
And all leaders then went through a program within the couple of years after that. Every leader at eBay was trained to be a coach. So you were expected to coach everyone on your team.
As a final reminder, if you're interested in deep dive conversations with Aoife, everything is in the video description, all the contacts on the relevant links. So feel free to do that and reach out.
Thank you, João.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, you too. Bye.